Welcome to Smart Route, the podcast by CallTrackingMetrics, where you'll hear stories from businesses at the intersection of marketing, customer experience, and sales. We're sitting down with business leaders and industry experts to dive deep into the path they took to find success. Here's your host, Andrew Clark.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back, listeners, to a fresh new season of Smart Route Podcast. My name is Andrew Clark. I'm the SEO and content strategist here at CallTrackingMetrics. I'm probably an unfamiliar face to you. I just joined CallTrackingMetrics last summer, and after a longer than expected summer break, we are back with a new season of Smart Route Podcast. And I could not think of a better way to kick off this season than have someone who is an industry veteran, somebody doing really great things, and probably somebody you know of if you've been reading any online media publications related to digital marketing, SEO, PPC. Jenise Uehara, who is the CEO of Search Engine Journal, as well as Alpha Brand Media. Jenise, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. And I didn't realize I was going to be your first guest after your hiatus. So, wow, exciting.
Yes.
I'll try to make it, and make our content exciting.
No.
But I'm so pleased to be here and flattered that you asked me. So here I am.
And just to let listeners have some context as to how we connected initially, I was inspired to reach out after reading your op-ed that came out after SEMrush had been acquired Search Engine Land, and was talking about you had published an op-ed discussing the future of online media in this particular industry. And, that just sparked something in me of like, oh my gosh, let me shoot for the stars. Let me see if a CEO has time for this little podcast of ours. And you were gracious enough to say, yes, I'll happily come on and talk. And we were going back and forth. And then I think we have some really great things that are going to come out of this episode. But before we get into what we're looking at for 2025 and beyond with regards to search marketing, I wanted to turn it over to you to just share a little bit of your backstory, how you got involved in this line of work, and what gets you up and going every day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, so I started in tech. After college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or be when I grew up. So I found myself living in Hawaii. I grew up in California and moved out there. I have some family out there, and I ended up working for what is today probably more well known as like an outsourced IT small business. So one of the biggest clients was Bank of Hawaii, and they serviced a bunch of companies on the island of Oahu. And I was an admin, so kind of general purpose, filing things, typing things up. I could get around an email, and that was about it. But I quickly fell in love with the whole technology thing. I'd see the text going out, and they were doing everything from installing all systems and fixed line networks and programs, and then training folks on how to use them. And I decided there was a career in here somewhere for me. I wasn't quite sure what, if I was going to become an engineer or if I was going to be more of someone, on the front office side. I did end up getting into training a little bit. I'd gotten to know one of our early CRM programs, Goldmine. Oh my gosh, that's really dating me. But that was like predates Salesforce, like by at least 10 years, I think. I just knew that I really enjoyed learning about it, what it could do, and the possibilities of technology. And so eventually I ended up moving back to California, Silicon Valley, and I've been here ever since. and spent the next 15 years here. Business operations, sales operations, product management. Did not learn to code, but stayed on the business side, and I really enjoyed it. And about 2007, I quit my job. And I just, I was going to take some time off and then go back out and look.
Mhm.
And my husband at the time had started a side business of a lot of content blogs that were monetized with AdSense. It was the whole make money while you sleep kind of deal. Imagine if you
Yes.
had
Yep.
50 blogs, they're making $5 a day, and, you throw some content up and you kind of figured out this rankings game,
Mm-hmm.
passive income, you know. So he said, we've got to keep these sites up, with like fresh content, and we've got a writer, and you're good at writing, and why don't you give it a shot? And I thought, well, why not? If I don't like it, I'll just go back to work for the man. Go back to tech. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I love it. I love the flexibility of the job. I can work from home, that my team is from all over the world, and
Mhm.
that we can, utilize all the things that people use today to stay
Mhm.
connected. I never feel like I'm in an outpost because of Slack and because of Google Meet and things like this. So that what we're
Sure.
doing. And, so that was 2009. Fast forward to um, about, uh, 2010. And that's when I met Lauren Baker, founder of
Okay.
Search Engine
Yes.
Journal. And he had some websites that needed tending to, but he had his hands full with his agency, and
Mhm.
there were 3 other partners at the time. They also had similar setups. Like when you're in the business, you're like creating all these websites that are making money for other people. And you think, I could do that. You buy a bunch of domains or some websites, and then like, oh, I don't have time to do that.
Right.
So we merged all the sites together. We merged our companies. And so I started managing Search Engine Journal along with maybe 30 other sites.
Mhm.
And over the years, Search Engine Journal just kept floating to the top. It um, it kept its audience, it kept its rankings, it had sort of the most viable business concept out of all of them, which were really built out of like, what's the least that we could do to keep this site ranking for a very niche term and flip some ads onto it.
Mhm.
So eventually, I'd say about 10 years ago, we sold off everything else and decided to go double down and put 100% of our effort into Search Engine Journal.
Wow. That must have been quite the discussion at the time if you're going to go fully in on one of the sites. I can't
Yeah.
imagine, just knowing I've been in this industry for about 10 years now and started out in social media management specifically, but more recent entry into SEO. But yeah, what could you describe for listeners kind of what was the digital landscape at that time like? And, compared to now, which we'll get into, but yeah, what was it like?
Well, it was the Wild West. It
Yes,
was
just a
like,
little bit.
if you had a nice keyword in your domain name, oh, that was sweet. Because you could throw up some content like this. It was much, much easier to rank than sites.
Hmm.
And, we didn't do anything spammy or scammy, but we had a lot of sites. It was a portfolio that was broad but shallow, is what I would say. And over the years, Google got smarter
Sure.
in a lot of good ways, and it became harder to keep some of these sites up as sort of without really being uh, without having and presenting and publishing on a constant basis content that reflected deep expertise
Hmm.
that that showed to Google that you deserve to be in one of the top spots when people are, searching for information on a thing.
Right.
And so um, over the years, as we started to see diminishing returns on those kinds of sites, we kept coming back to Search Engine Journal. It always had deep content. It always had, Lauren was always actively involved in the site to make sure that and the game is always changing. And so making sure that the content was up to date, was relevant, authentic, and credible had always been sort of an underpinning of the content that we published there.
Sure.
And it became, in a sense, a very easy decision. Which site, if we had to pick any of them, which would we double down on? It was very hands down Search Engine Journal. It was a little hard to let go of the other sites. It was like, oh, we could just tweak this one thing or add on this one affiliate, affiliate marketing commission model, maybe this product will work better. But eventually we did cut ties, and I said, we're making this official and we're selling them off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we made that decision about 10 years ago. And then about 2018, my husband and I separated. And so, I don't know if you know anybody who's gone through a divorce, but it's, it really, it really just turns everything upside down.
Sure.
From your life and your lifestyle and who am I and what am I doing? And I ended up throwing myself into my work.
Mm-hmm.
And Search Engine Journal became a lifeline for me. And our, the team started to come together, and I started to lean into what does it mean to be a leader and to have values, and what can I really do with this amazing team that we put together and the content and the foundation that we have in our audience. And I've just been up to my eyeballs in it ever since. So
I mean, that sounds like an incredible silver lining now. And yeah, I can't imagine at that time what it felt like with kind of this simultaneous thing happening of the business taking off, but also some things going on in your personal life that, could be traumatic and just devastating. Witnessed it. Yeah. So, but I'm happy that now it seems like things have gotten better, and the SEJ is kind of, it's known throughout the industry. I mean, you guys always are coming up top of mind. For me, it's where I, as somebody who was learning how to do SEO, was often directed to. And
oh, good.
Yeah, no, I mean, so many past managers were directing me to the site and saying, take a look at what's being talked about. And to this day, it's a great resource. And I think this nicely dovetails into what we were teasing at the top of the call about what's coming up this year. And, as I mentioned, you had written a really great op-ed about remaining independent when there's now one of these trends that we're seeing, and I think only going to accelerate in 2025, is really consolidation of different verticals, different bigger companies buying up publishers, trying to establish a footprint where they can, and really dominate the media landscape. So curious to hear a little more, especially for listeners who maybe haven't read the op-ed yet. What was your thinking at the time, and how do you see that shaping things to come this year?
Oh, great question. When I woke up to the news that, our biggest head-to-head competitor as a publisher, Search Engine Land, was bought by one of the biggest players in the industry and a big advertiser of ours. It was a threat on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from, wow, they have a lot of resources. They have a lot of money, and they are, and like I said, we're one of our biggest customers at the time. So what did it mean for us? And then I started to think more broadly, because it always comes back to the audience,
Hmm.
of which most of our staff considers themselves part of, you know,
Sure.
what does it mean for the industry at large, which I believe, depends so heavily on, like, you just never know what you're going to wake up to.
Hmm.
It's not a very predictable life that we lead here
No.
in this space. And so, we become news junkies, whether you like it or not. You have to, because you don't want your boss coming in and saying, "Hey, did you hear about that thing that just happened?" And that, I think, is going to skew all of our campaigns, right? You want to be ahead of that, and you want to know what your competition is doing. And it's a constantly evolving landscape of what is working and what's not. What happens when that news source, um, you know, is potentially not independent? I'm being
Mhm.
careful here because, SEMrush has said, and from the the outside looking in, I don't have any insight into how the team is working or has changed, but they've maintained that the editorial team will have their independence and, can publish what they want. Um, you know, I haven't been paying a lot of attention, honestly, since they got bought. I haven't heard or seen anything that would indicate they're doing anything or publishing anything that would indicate, wow, there's a conflict of interest here.
Hmm.
But it is something to think about.
Absolutely.
And as I, think about our situation, independence comes at, it is costly for us to be independent, and it is something that I believe is in the best interest of the company. And and selfishly, it's what I strongly, strongly prefer, to be able to do what we want when we want to. And because the things that we do have so many nuances and are so have so many things to already consider, adding yet a majority, a voice with a lot of influence, that may be counter to
Hmm.
that, which is, a dedication to publishing um, what is authentic, what is credible and objective, and relevant to our audience. I don't want anything to get in the way of that.
Absolutely. I think that's a really admirable take on being a publisher, and trying to deliver something objective when there's so many outside forces trying to push you to be subjective and cater to one particular perspective. I mean, I'm just thinking about some of the recent developments that we've seen just in early 2025 with regards to digital marketing. I mean, what's happening with WordPress and like its future and the
Yeah.
internal squabbling and the implications for everybody who uses WordPress, or changes coming to, something that we get into in our predictions is around the acceleration of stuff like AI platforms and its impact on content development. And just seeing, is this, for me personally, I see it as another tool in my toolkit, and something that I have to consciously not surrender to fully and say, here, ChatGPT, Claude, whoever, take all the creativity out of my work. I still have to have an active voice and some control in it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
what the notes we've been sharing with one another about this episode, there's some synchronicity in that thinking that AI is not all good, it's not all bad, is just a tool. And it's up to
Mm-hmm.
us as search marketers and digital marketers at large to use it responsibly, and think long and hard about how it gets used, what's the right context for its use. And I think that upskilling is really essential. And for me, that's something I think only going to increase is pressure on us as marketers to really hone our skills and go back to the drawing board and basics of marketing in some ways, but also be much more sophisticated when it comes to stuff like research. How do you frame questions for AI to help you in content development and research? But love to hear your take on this as well, as somebody that's at the forefront about writing about all these topics.
It's we were really thinking. I had some thoughts about, like, what is 2025 going to be like? And it's kind of daunting to try to make a prediction about it, because it's snowballing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and and I kept coming back this idea of the phrase that you just used, back to basics. I think one is, for marketers, I think a key for success for the future of marketers is to walk a fine line that will be constantly moving and changing course, understanding and adopting um, what's good about AI right now that's going to boost and give them superpowers in the work that they're doing, to what is not good to use for AI. What aren't you going to be able to get away with? And you can't get away with asking AI to write all of your content whole cloth and hitting publish, as a very extreme bad example.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there. Could it get there? Maybe,
Potentially.
probably, sure. It's not
Yeah.
there yet. But understanding where it is now and recognizing that it's going to change tomorrow and next week and the month after that, it's kind of exhausting, honestly, to try to keep up. Um, but and layered on top of all of that is to develop some awareness about what your biases might be,
Mm.
your cognitive biases might be. Some of them you might be aware of, and some of them you might not be. And I think it's what we did last year is we read, in my team, we do a book club every year. And last year it was a book about AI by
Mm-hmm.
Mustafa Suleiman, The Coming Wave. And he's now, I think, whatever the title is of the head AI dude at Microsoft. He got the job after he wrote
Okay.
that book. And we got together in groups. It was about understanding the material, but also to understand, like, how do you feel about it? And I think everybody is going to eventually be in a position, some people more immediately than others, where they're thinking, is AI going to take my job? Is
Yeah.
AI going to take
Valid question.
important parts of my job that I like?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I feel about that? And so talking through, you know, um, people's hot takes and where that came from, and and by biases, and some examples are, blind embracing of technology. I, for one, welcome our AI overlords. Not great, because you lean too hard into it. You're gonna you it's not gonna be good. Um, and or AI is going to be the death of civilization, and whatever I can do to resist
Mm-hmm.
adoption or incorporating it into what I do is effort well spent. Also, so I encourage my team to look at both. If they were landing on either side of those, um, to take a look at where that might be coming from, and to get to a place in the middle, which is to be objective and pragmatic, and
Mm-hmm.
to have strong opinions loosely held.
Yeah, I think you hit it spot on, and mirrors much of kind of my thinking around it as well. And yeah, I think what you just said about having a book club and having just kind of these deeper philosophical questions come up and being candid with one another on your team is really a great starting point. And that's something that I've been trying to sprinkle in here at Call Tracking Metrics as well, is just raising these questions with teammates. And I independently was reading, just because you mentioned a book. It was a work of fiction that actually came to me via my wife, but called Hum. And it's a short novel, recently published, but somewhat futuristic, but not too far out. and just discussing the implications of AI in daily life and centering it around one single family and how AI has changed the world around them. Um, and it just gave me a number of times a kind of internal ick reaction. But I, I took that as a great sign that, okay, this is sparking deeper thought within me. This is something I can take into the office and have a discussion with a colleague and say, hey, we're developing AI products and we are contributing to the acceleration of its adoption at large. But are we thinking through the ethics of it? Are we thinking through, several steps beyond just we're delivering a marketing service to someone?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that is a great thing. And I think for all listeners, if you're not already doing that, do that. Um, and I think from that, all these other tendrils that we're talking about 2025 and what's to come. Yeah, you talked about getting back to basics. I think we're seeing the rebirth of uh, stuff like offline marketing techniques that were kind of sidelined for the longest time of, hey, now we're going to revisit direct mail. We're going to reconsider billboards and out of home. I mean, these things have always been happening, and I'm sure people listening have been doing it all along. But I'm seeing just kind of an upswell in articles that are being published by like SEJ or seeing it on LinkedIn posts, other podcasts. So there's something percolating there. And I think all of us as marketers are kind of having this reawakening of, hey, we got to really think long and hard about our profession and its future. Because, like you said, AI could sweep up some of the aspects of what we do day in and day out.
I love that you brought up that book. I wrote it down.
Okay.
I want to read it. And I love that you said it brought up a couple of moments where you said ick, and
Yep.
I'm guessing it was like an uncanny valley situation kind of. And in talking about getting back to basics and sort of old school methods, maybe non-digital methods. I mean, what's next door to our salesman? But um, I do think that in all of this, as we lean more and become more sophisticated in both identifying it, using it, adopting, and our understanding of AI, we're going to keep circling back to connection.
Yes.
I think that's what that comes
100%.
down to. Human connection and being able to verifiably human, whatever that means. But where I know that a thing that was made, whether it was art or writing, or talking to someone on the phone, I think at some point the pendulum is going to swing and there will be human creation or being able to talk to someone is going to have its own unique value. In the midst of swimming, we're already swimming in AI content and services. Here in the Valley, I went up to the city last Saturday, city being San Francisco, and on 101, there's these massive billboards. It's beautiful landscape as you come over the hill from where I live south of the city, and you come over the hill and you just see this, Salesforce Tower and the bridges and water and Alcatraz and the city laid out in front of you, and they have these big billboards on the side of the freeway, and you can always kind of get a pulse of like whatever the hot topic is, the theme of the moment in tech, because they're mostly dominated by tech advertisers, and about every other one was about AI. And one of them actually said, "Stop hiring humans." So it was about an AI assistant, or I think it was actually business development. So
Oh, wow.
instead of hiring business, outsourcing or in-house BD person, stop hiring humans, hire Eva. And I think it's intriguing, and if that works and there's use cases for it and it doesn't backfire on you, take an objective and pragmatic look at it. And I just think that at some point the pendulum is going to swing back, and people are going to think about what it means to be human and the value in that, and being able to pick up the phone and talk to a real person.
We couldn't agree more. I mean, that is the core of our business here at Call Tracking Metrics, and we believe 100% in that. And yeah, like you said, certain things will never be able to be replicated, at least at this point in the foreseeable future, by AI. And all the things that come through these different mediums that are offline or direct. I'm just thinking about, yeah, any phone call, like hearing somebody's voice and the emotions behind it, their tone, doing video calls, the fact that we're doing this right now, being able to see one another, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just going off of that. And I love what you were saying about centering marketing in human connection again. I think that has been somewhat lost over the years, and it's hard to distill fully in digital if that is the sole focus of your marketing. Um, but yeah, just getting back to how do we connect with people that we're trying to serve or sell to? What do they actually want? And not in kind of the superficial way, but really, if we look to past years with big advertising campaigns, there's always an emotional draw. Uh, and that's what people buy into. It's not always about the product itself. Um, so yeah, I think just seeing that come back into the discussion is great. And yeah, I'm also curious, just as we're starting to wrap up the episode, of what are some of your personal goals and professional goals going into 2025 that you want to put out into the ether, and you know have, yeah, just I would love to hear about it.
You know,
not not to put you on the spot or anything.
no, this is great. Gosh, okay, okay. So there's two things. Um, and they come back to, you know, they come back to AI, and they come back to um, uh, being connected. So my team is 100% remote, and we've got folks in 7 time zones and 6 countries, or maybe vice versa. I don't remember anymore. About a third of them I've never met in person.
Wow.
Yeah, but I know them. They know me,
Sure.
because we're doing this, all
Hmm.
day and on Slack and all the things. But there's something about knowing how tall somebody is. When you can hug somebody, when you can say, "Hey, let's go to lunch."
Hmm.
Spending time with someone in person, again, coming back to human connection, you cannot replicate that. AI is not going to help you there. It can facilitate you getting there,
Yeah.
and being able to be with that person in real time in person. But we're not going to overcome eons of human evolution, which and we're this is what we're wired for. Our lizard brain is wired for being able to look somebody in the eye. It does
Hmm.
something, chemically to us. So I would like my team to get together more. Whether it's regional get-togethers, whether it's at a conference. We started to do a bit of that last year,
Hmm.
but getting folks together in person to make that final connection. People that I feel like I know really well, and like have thought, well, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. And then when I finally did meet them in person, I'm like, oh, okay, this is different. So
Yep.
having that experience, for more of my team to get together to do so would be fantastic. And the second thing is go to phase 2 on adoption of AI. Top down at a systems level, what more can we do within the systems that we have that can replace, what the thing I said to my team was, look, at if any of you are regularly copying and pasting things, especially into spreadsheets, we should be really, we're far beyond, conceptually, like that should not be a thing. And
Hmm.
doesn't, I mean, at this point, it doesn't even have to be AI, but what can we start to use AI more of? internally, again, from a top-down systems approach, and also at the individual level, writers, editors, designers, back office, finance, operations. There's more that we can do with AI and developing our own sophistication, which I think is going to be key. I tell them, whether you keep working for me, or we're not going to be together forever, and you're going to be out there, and they are going to ask you, depending on when, what's your comfort level and expertise when it comes to AI? How do you use it in your day to day? What are you familiar with? Which systems? Which, pick your poison. But you're going to need to develop that, and I encourage you to develop that in house. So that's part of my plans for 2025.
Well, again, I mean, two incredible goals, and thank you for sharing them, Jenise. And just as we're wrapping up, I want to ask, where should people look to connect with you if they want to?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We will make sure to drop a link in the episode description and any social media posts that are going out. And thank you, Jenise, for your time. Wishing you and the SEJ team lots of success this year. And we're all here for the ride. So it's going to be great.
Thank you, Andrew. This was so much fun. It went by like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And a big thank you to CallTrackingMetrics team as well. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm so honored to be your first guest back.
Well, thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners. You can be expecting more regular episodes coming out this year. We're back on a monthly cadence. So until next episode, have a great one, and we'll speak to you then.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Smart Route Podcast. Share your favorite takeaways with us on Twitter at Smart Route Pod. Smart Route is brought to you by CallTrackingMetrics, and you can find more at calltrackingmetrics.com/podcast. Follow along for ideas and conversations that will inspire your own business path forward. Speaking of smart paths, are your marketing, sales, and service teams on the same page? In today's remote world, it's easy to get disconnected. CallTrackingMetrics can help. We empower smart marketing teams to determine the best route for campaigns by showing exactly which ad campaigns are driving conversations that convert. Operational teams can use that data to automate call flows and power contact center success. Visit calltrackingmetrics.com to see why more than 100,000 customers around the globe trust CallTrackingMetrics to manage communications for their marketing, sales, and service teams.